Today on the CTV News at 5, remembering Ralph.
Thank you for the honor and the privilege of serving this great province. Thank you.
Alberta's 12th Premier passes away. Plus, Southern Albertans bear the cross this Good Friday. And
nice day out, sun shining and
hitting the greens.
CTV News with Jackie Scantlebury.
Good afternoon. One of our province's most colorful premiers has died. Ralph Klein passed away early this morning, surrounded by family and friends at a Calgary care center. Klein has been battling lung disease and dementia. His political career started when he became a disenchanted Calgary City Hall reporter and thought he could do better. He was elected mayor in 1980 and spent the next 9 years seeing Calgary through the boom and bust of the decade. In 1989, he ran for and won the provincial seat of Calgary Elbow in Don Getty's government. 3 years later, he became Conservative Party leader and went on to win the next 3 elections before finally stepping down in 2007. Now, Albertans would probably use a lot of words to describe Klein: outlandish, funny, maybe some that aren't as flattering. Tonight, however, friends of the late Premier are sharing another side of him, using words like caring and generous, a man who hoped Albertans would love him as much as he loved them. Here's Chris Epp on Klein's outside the political ring.
He was unapologetic, brash, and outspoken. But those close to Ralph Klein say he had a side the public rarely saw.
Ralph was quite shy, I think would probably surprise a lot of people. You know, I remember one time we walked into a Mac's to probably buy a pack of smokes. Not that Ralph bought a lot of smokes, but he was a notorious bummer. But the fellow behind the counter said to him, boy, you sure look like Ralph Klein. And Ralph just simply said back, yeah, I get that a lot.
Alan Hallman was one of the people who recruited Klein to the Tory party and managed all his campaigns. He says despite Klein's brash demeanor, he was extremely sensitive to the personal consequences of his political decisions.
And I remember when we were going through the 90s and the restructuring of government, how Ralph would not sleep well at nights. Ralph was tossing and turning, and he was tossing and turning about the Martha and Henrys of the world that he always referred to. But the restructuring of government was going to cost some jobs, and that was a huge concern and a huge weight on Ralph.
Friends say during his brief time outside the public eye, Klein became more introspective, more spiritual, especially when forced to face his own mortality.
When you know that you are not doing well, that life could end at some point, you certainly start to talk about eternity and am I ready and what will happen after I die, and he had those natural questions.
Matheson got to know Klein in his final years. He says the former premier enjoyed discussing God and life after death, but as his illness stole his ability to speak, he often simply asked to pray.
Last week when I was there, he took his hand out of the blankets and grabbed hold of my hand and just held on very tightly. It was a very special moment, and we prayed together.
Friends say the proof of how down-to-earth the popular premier really was could be found at home. Married to the same person, living in the same house for 4 decades, Klein never lost touch with where he came from. Chris Epp, CTV News, Calgary.
A public celebration of life will be held to honor Klein. However, his family has said they do not wish for a state funeral to be held. More details will be shared as arrangements are made. Now, even though we were aware the former premier's health was declining, his death has still shocked and saddened many Southern Albertans.
Well, I think that's a sad day for Alberta. He certainly gave a lot of himself, and our province really benefited by his leadership.
Because he was just, I don't know, just because he was such a great guy.
It's a sad day. It's a sad day for Alberta. I'm not really sure if I'm 100% a Klein fan, but he did do a lot for Alberta. He did a lot for the city of Calgary, too.
I'm sad, but he wasn't well, and we all know that. But well, that's too bad.
King Ralph was really good for our province and did a lot of great things as a Conservative leader, so it's tragic.
Condolence books will be set up across the province for Albertans to pay their respects. But some Southern Albertans are already honoring our former premier on social media. On our Facebook page, Sherry wrote, "Very sad, sad day." Thoughts and prayers to his family. There will never be another like him. Buzz added, "Too bad. I thought as a premier he was a super guy. Even with all the cutbacks, he was the one that got us out of debt. Thanks, King Ralph, for a job well done." Crystal thought, "It's too bad he didn't teach a class on how to be a fantastic premier." Tanya says, "Rest in peace, Ralph. You were a good man who did great things for our province. You are now pain-free. Soar with the Eagles." While Leon wrote, "I'm shocked and saddened they don't make them like that anymore." Andre simply added, "Long live King Ralph." The province has set up an online book of condolences, and we've created a link for it on the CTV Calgary website. Okay, Steve Rothfels is here. And Steve, I truly believe that if a weather person is taking a day off, you know it's going to be a great day in the forecast. So thank you for filling in for Dory today.
You're very welcome, Jackie. It's a good Friday. We could say it's a great Friday weather-wise, with temperatures in the mid-teens in southern Alberta and lots of sunshine. Now, each day from now on, we're going to see a little more cloud and temperatures cooling off a little bit, so that by Easter Sunday, we should be back to seasonal temperatures with a fair bit of cloud. We'll take you through it, all the numbers coming up a little bit later in the show, Jackie.
Thank you, Steve. Millions of Christians around the world are marking Good Friday. In Jerusalem, hundreds streamed through the cobblestone alleys following the route Jesus is believed to have taken before his crucifixion. The final stop for pilgrims is the Holy Church, believed to be built on the site where Jesus was crucified, buried, and resurrected. And it's Easter weekend. For many, it's a time to relax and reconnect with family. For others, it's a time to focus on their faith and spirituality.
Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing." And the soldiers gambled for his clothes.
A handful of people from the College Drive Community Church marked Good Friday with prayers and a crosswalk through downtown Lethbridge. For Christians, the walk symbolizes the crucifixion of Jesus to atone for humanity's sins and make salvation possible. This morning's walk began at Galt Gardens, ending with a communion service at the College Drive Church.
Good Friday is it's a time for quiet and reflection, and it's a time for really thinking on what Jesus did for us on the cross. I also find it hard to think about Good Friday without connecting it to Easter Sunday, because it's only part of Good Friday is only part of the story. We celebrate both the crucifixion, but also the resurrection completes the story.
Now, this weekend marks a resurrection for the Catholic Charities Clothes Bank in Lethbridge as well. The organization will be closing its doors tomorrow and then reopening next week under new ownership for the clothing and thrift stores. It marks the end of a long relationship with the Catholic Church. Terry Vogt reports.
For longtime employees like Ken Jarrett, this Easter weekend marks the end of a long association with the Roman Catholic Diocese and a new beginning under a Lethbridge social agency, Peak Vocational and Support Services, kind of a resurrection of sorts.
That's what they say. It's sort of kind of fitting anyway, so we didn't actually pick this day. We just thought, yeah, it's never even thinking that Easter and everything else is just sort of a coincidence.
The changes come after a failed attempt to reorganize under the Catholic Church. The clothes bank had been struggling for more than 5 years, but the final blow came just over a year ago when the Alberta Court of Appeals ruled the Calgary Diocese and Bishop Henry held legal title to the 3 Lethbridge properties.
We knew then it's over for us because we just couldn't get the financing and he wouldn't help us out with that. So
Catholic Charities will be closing its doors at the end of the workday tomorrow, but 9 of the staff will return to their jobs on Monday. The downtown store will be closed and stock moved to the other locations on Mare McGrath Drive and 5th Avenue North. Those locations will reopen under a new name, More for Less Thrift Stores. And the need hasn't gone away. Jarrett says they were serving 2,500 to 3,000 people every month.
We've had cases where we've helped somebody, then they've came around and probably about 3 months later came back in and said, I'd like to make a donation because when I was down and out, you helped me out and things were looking pretty bleak and, you know, made me feel good. So, yeah, that's the good part about it, eh?
And while the name will change, the goal is to provide the same kind of service to the community. The stores will be reopening to the public on Thursday. Terry Vogt, CTV News, Lethbridge.
With the new arrangement, the volunteer board has been able to avoid bankruptcy, a move that would have left many people out of pocket. Once they wind up operations, they will file for dissolution. Lethbridge Regional Police are looking for your help tracking down a suspect wanted for a sexual assault near downtown Lethbridge. It happened around 4 a.m. Thursday in the area of 6th Street and 6th Avenue South. A 30-year-old woman was grabbed from behind, forced to the ground, and sexually assaulted. The suspect is described as Aboriginal, about 220 pounds, with long hair. He was wearing blue jeans, a dark hoodie, possibly blue, and had his ball cap on backwards. Anyone with information is urged to contact either police or Crime Stoppers. Meanwhile, a 35-year-old Lethbridge man is charged in connection to a sexual assault. The charge comes after an 18-year-old woman claimed to be assaulted by a man that she knew at a home in the 500 block of 7th Street South earlier this week. 35-year-old Mark Breckenridge is charged with sexual assaults. A 24-year-old Cardston man will spend the next 2 years behind bars for an assault that happened nearly a year ago. Police say they found Christopher James Hindbull on a grass boulevard along 4th Avenue South and Scenic Drive, having sex with a woman who had passed out. Hindbull and the victim didn't know each other, but both had been said to have been drinking heavily earlier. Hindbull will also be listed as a registered sex offender for the next 2 decades. 2 people have pleaded guilty to passing fake American money to businesses across southern Alberta and BC. Late last year, Lethbridge Regional Police began investigating a number of reports of counterfeit U.S. cash. They uncovered $16,000 had been passed at 18 businesses in Lethbridge, Medicine Hat, Crowsnez Pass, and Strathmore. 34-year-old Terry LaRoe from Lethbridge and 37-year-old Gregory Dempsey of Calgary will be sentenced April 17th. Well, if you've ever wondered about the justice system and what happens behind the scenes in the courthouse, then you may want to circle the calendar for April the 13th. That's Law Day this year, and there's a lot going on down at the Lethbridge Courthouse. Some of the local lawyers are putting on a mock trial that will feature characters from The Wizard of Oz. Other events include courthouse tours, a citizenship ceremony, and police demonstrations. Lawyers will also be offering free legal services for people who register in advance. The goal is to provide an opportunity for people to learn more about the legal system, the role law plays in Canadian democracy, but it also promises to be entertaining.
The Wizard of Oz has been charged with an offense, so myself and some other Wizard of Oz characters are going to be there to speak at this trial. There's going to be a judgment at the end, so it should be a lot of fun.
The content is very light and aimed at kids, but the purpose of it and the intent of it is to show what an actual trial would look like that we deal with here in Lethbridge.
For more information or to book an appointment for free legal advice, you can call Lethbridge Legal Guidance at 403-380-6338. Individuals or families who are planning to adopt will benefit from tax changes under the new federal budget. Experts say the budget's main focus was on jobs and the economy, but there are some adjustments to the adoption expense tax credit that will offset some of the rising costs of adoption. The measures applied to adoptions finalized after 2012.
Increase the dollar value of the adoption credit to kind of coincide with the actual increased costs of adopting nowadays, as well as they're changing the period of expense. So before you had to actually be matched with a child before you could actually get any of your expenses to claim for the adoption credit, whereas now you actually can do it as soon as you apply to either the institute or at the provincial government or the adoption agency.
The budget also contains a job-related initiative under the Canada Job Grant Program. It could provide up to $15,000 per person or more for training. In order to take advantage of the program, businesses have to have a plan to train underemployed or unemployed Canadians for an existing or a better job. Coming up after the break, Steve is going to tell us what is in the forecast for the 36th annual Easter egg hunt at the Westminster Community Centre tomorrow. Gets underway 10 a.m. Markets are closed today because of Good Friday. Here's a look, though, at yesterday's closing numbers.